So I want to turn the corner a little bit because I feel like jumping from like 100 to 200 homes a year to like 600 to 700, 800, there's a shift that has to happen. What is that shift?
One of my favorite things is, and I read it years ago and it has forever stuck with me. It's called the rule of threes and tens. Okay. The rule of threes and tens works like this. When you go from 1 to 3 people in your organization, everything changes. How you operate, how you function, what your time structure looks like, your cadence, your mindset, everything changes. The same thing happens when you go from 3 to 10. And by the way, it might be 9, it might be 11, but it holds true in that same capacity. So when you hit 10 people, oh my gosh, totally different than 3. And how you execute and how you operate changes. Well, that compounds when you go from 10 to 30, 30 to 100, 100 to 300, 300 to 1,000. That's when businesses need to shape shift themselves. I was talking with a coaching client yesterday who currently has 56 agents on his team, a ton of agents.
Wow. Yeah.
And he had said, hey, we're having some issues because I don't feel like we're set up in the right structure. And so I asked him about vision of growth, and we talked about who he currently has leading his agents. And I said, Dan, are you currently functioning as a team that's leading 100 people or a team that's leading 30 people? And without hesitation, he goes, oh, we're a team of 30. Like, that's how we're functioning. That's our mindset is we want to deliver that same kind of cadence and that same kind of setup. If you're in a small organization, everybody has to row the boat together. Everybody has to be in the exact same cadence. You can't fart without everybody else smelling it and detecting it. So your foundational people matter a whole lot. From there, it becomes success through others, right? My career had me as the top producer for the first number of years, and then it was 2014, and I sold 153 houses myself in 2014. My team sold 411. That was the first year in my career where my team outproduced me. That was the accelerator in which we had to say, how do we start functioning differently? We had to rely on no longer just a PCSOI and no longer low-hanging fruit. We had to add in other strategies that were bringing in new dollars. So I think that as you grow, when you hit that 3 or that 10 or that 30 or that 100, you have to re-examine all of those things. Where do you get your leads from? How do you lead your people? How do you bring your people in? Like, everything is brought into question because it all reshapes. So it's not an easy, like, 1, 2, I did these 2 things. I literally had to view myself when I hit. For me, it was about 14 people. When I hit about 14 people, I recognized, because that's when I was going from selling in the 200s to the 400s and 500s and 600s. So I had to operate totally differently. I got out of production, right? That was a leadership problem. I changed my spend. I went from a guy that was spending $15,000 a month to, at my peak, I was spending $120,000 a month when our team was at its biggest, right? Literally 8x'd my dollars spent. That, of course, is a reshaping of everything. You have to make sure that your ISA system is set up, that your admin system is set up, that you're trying to minimize capital and maximize expense, because there's a difference, and I want to be really clear on this. There's a difference between scaling and growing. Some of the mistakes I made is I was really intentional on growing, adding more, spending more so that we could have more. That more was an ego stroke. We sold 1,024 houses in 2021, but my profit margin in that was only 13%. I know some people, I have a friend named Katie in Houston. Katie sells a couple hundred houses a year. Yeah, Katie Day. She's a legend. She sells a couple hundred houses a year on her team, and her profit margin is like 40%. How many less headaches does Katie have? How many more loyal, row the boat together team members does Katie have? Because when I had 55 people selling 1,024 houses at a 13% profit margin, the world said you're amazing, but I didn't feel amazing. So you have to be really, really careful on what you're building, how you're building it. And I will, again, declare this as loud as I can. Most people shouldn't have big teams. Most people should have micro teams once they've mastered their own production. And that's it. You can have a 7-figure life annually with so many less headaches, with working 30 or 40 hours a week. You can literally make $500 an hour with a micro team. It took me, the first year I ever made $1 million for my real estate team, and I have some other businesses too that are fruitful, and I'm fortunate for that. First year I ever made $1 million was 2020. I had to sell 866 houses to make $1 million. Katie Day makes almost $1 million a year selling 200 houses. And the famous words of the people at Napoleon Dynamite, they said, I want that. The couple sitting at the table when they see the thing that Uncle Rico's giving away when they buy the Tupperware, and she just says, "I want that. That's what I want. I want the easier." And I'm here to try to say, take the road less traveled. Don't build the mega team. The mega team can be disruptive and a headache, and it works for a few, but it fails for most.
So you talked about the leadership lessons that you learned this past year, the tough lessons that you had to go through. What changes are you making now, kind of in your structure, your team, like moving forward to kind of have a more fruitful business that doesn't have all those headaches? Are there anything in mind? Or
So back in March, we joined Place. Place is basically a team for teams. It's ran by Ben Kinney, who is just such a legend in this industry. Chris Suarez, who is such an incredible dude, and Chris Stewart, who serves as president. He's the former CEO of Berkshire Hathaway. So some big players. And I recognize that I spent a lot of my years and a lot of my time building unintentionally for my ego, maybe even intentionally so, that I wanted it to be my name, my thing. I was going to stand alone. I had an independent brokerage. I was going to get as far as I could on my own, that I was the guy, right? That was the story I told myself. Well, it was a great story until I really needed help, and I looked around and I was all alone. And chapter 1 for my real estate career was solo agent, and that worked out pretty well. Chapter 2 was the guy leading the team, and the guy leading the team worked out pretty well. Chapter 3, which is what I'm unfolding right now, are strategic partnerships. So my partnership with Real, the brokerage that I'm aligned with, is 100% strategic. I'm there to get better. I'm there to give. Yes, I'm there to capitalize on opportunities. I'm there to support my team, but I'm there to get better. And the leadership that they have and the partnership that I get with them is unparalleled. My partnership with Place is of that same accord. I brought in and literally am now sharing the ownership and the responsibility of my team, not only with Place, but my president, Heather Matson, who is just the most tremendous of women. So all of that is that I have now started to recognize that I'm not the guy. Don't get me wrong, Andrew. I've done some cool things, right? I've done what most people haven't done in this industry, but I'm not near as far as I want to be. And I haven't impacted enough lives yet. I haven't done enough cool stuff. I haven't broken the mold well enough. And so everywhere I get at this point in this chapter is about partnerships. The reason why I failed was because of me. I told you I hired some wrong leaders. The key part in that is not the leaders that I hired. The key part is me. I made the decision. I handed off the baton improperly. Me. This is all about how I can get better, and I need to own all that.
And if you enjoyed this clip, watch the full episode right here.